Well, I started working on Across the Spider-Verse in 2018. And I came on at the tail end of the first film, although we're still wrapping up. And I think in the industry, we sort of knew something cool was going to happen because a trailer dropped and people had gotten real talkative about it. And then I got to see a cut of the film and I was like, this is really cool and different. It hadn't come out. And then it came out and then it started sort of gaining recognition. And so at that point, I knew like the shoes were getting much bigger to fill for the sequel. I mean, look, there's a lot, but if I had to sort of whittle it down to one thing, it was the fact that as artists, we were able to come together. Like, you know, we made the film through COVID as well, and the fact, like Troy was just saying, art still found a way to survive through those really trying times. And I remember being disheartened that we were sort of all separated from each other, but as reels were coming in, as VizDev was still coming in, as that was still happening, those connections to me really solidified that I'm so happy that I chose this career path because art still found a way to survive through those really rough times. And similarly, I think a lot of artists, especially our younger artists on our team, who might not have had family support systems, who were living in apartments and were alone, you know, we could see at times that they were going through some tough times. And these moments here where we were connecting about the art, and then that was sort of branching off into other beautiful conversations and allowing us to open up to each other. That was really special. I mean, you're asking us to single out a one from a million lessons learned.
Most important one, the
but
most.
yeah, I think one of the biggest ones was to never settle. You know, all the stuff that I'd worked on previous to this was TV, and like, don't get me wrong, we always shot for the stars in TV, but that faucet is turned on to some extent, and those episodes got to roll out. So there are some episodes that are sort of like nines and tens, and then you know there's going to be a couple like sevens, maybe a six or two that go out. And with this film, there was such a dedication from all fronts for this film to work on all its levels, and nobody was really willing to concede any ground. And that was a huge learning experience for me because you know you get a lot of pressure from a lot of different avenues that say like, hey, you're over budget, you're over time, you're over all the things. This thing has to go. And we had a lot of amazing people that were just so dedicated to making sure that everything was right. We had, you know, it's sort of gotten out there now, but we had an amazing sequence that was working decently well in the Pavitra Prabhakar Spider-Man India sequence. And we got a note really late in the game from a lot of our Indian crew, a lot of animators and production folk that said like, hey, we really do appreciate that you guys are going here and doing this, but you know, Pob's quite frankly just not as aspirational a character he can be, and not a reflection of teenagers that we know we were, and teenagers that we now have that are growing up and sort of you know, sort of in the modern era. And so, you know, to everybody's credit and against the better judgment of anybody who had money on their mind, you know, we went back in and cracked open those reels again, and all the stuff that I think, again, the sequence was sort of like structurally similarly the same as it always was, but the high points, the stuff that people really remember about Pavitra and why they really connected to him, they were found in those moments. And that was a huge learning lesson for me. Man, you're asking some heavy questions. Look, I will always take the hand of the artist, whether it's the written word or the drawn line or the, you know, perspective for me is everything, and a unique perspective. It doesn't have to be the cleanest thing. It can be messy, but that is always the most interesting path to me. So that will be my first choice always. That being said, look, I can remember the days when I first got into the industry, we only drew on paper and I used a lot of Post-its, and then there was a transition on to everybody using, you know, computers and drawing digitally and creating things digitally. And I remember artists of the generation just before me losing their minds and thinking that was the end of the industry. So to me, you know, with regards to AI specifically, it's about ethics, but it's about us funneling our perspectives through whatever tool we use to tell our stories. It's about the human perspective. As far as the industry goes and the types of films that we see here that are up for nomination and are being recognized, I've been waiting my entire life for this day. I've been moved by every form of animation and filmmaking. And look, I was part of the thing that made the formula films very popular as well. So I love it all. I think it's all available. Uh, it's just perspective. It's just I'm excited to hear people's stories. I'm excited to see people's takes on art. That's what moves me. My gosh, man. I've said this a few times. It wasn't so I was like a Saturday morning TV cartoon kid. I was of that generation. It was like a bowl of cereal, 6 a.m. I was in front of the TV. Um, there was a show amongst the like 80s perennial shows that were, you had like your GI Joes and your Thundercats and your things and your things and your things, but there was a show called Robotech that I absolutely fell in love with when I was a kid. It was a serialized show. It didn't talk down to kids. It was a big space opera, but people fell in love, people fell out of love, people died, people dealt with the trauma of that death. And there was an ambiguity to what constitutes a good guy, what constitutes a bad guy. Some of the aliens that were like bad guys in the beginning, they sort of get intermingled with our lead characters, and then they start asking all these like existential questions about what are we doing here and why are we fighting, and that had a huge impact on me when I was a kid. I mean, look, I think for as big as that film gets, and for as many things as we throw at the screen, it's actually a really small film about family and about forging your own path. So, we could have set that story in rural America. We could have set that story anywhere we wanted in the world. We chose to set it across multiple universes with spider people swinging all over the place and T-Rexes and whatnot. But that story is actually a really small story that I hope people have really connected to and found relatability in.